I hope at the end of the day you'll be able to walk away with some information that will be helpful to you connecting up Catholic higher education and the Marianist way of proceeding. What I'm going to try to do here is have a very modest goal. I want you to walk away with something that is new and different or that you've heard before. So the first part will be just talking about Catholic higher education and what do we mean by that. We'll pull apart Catholic, higher ed, and we'll use a document called Ex Corde Ecclesiae, and that'll take us to about halfway. And then in the next 25 minutes, we're going to talk about, now that we have Catholic higher ed landscape, how do the Marianists proceed in that world of Catholic higher ed? And that's the two parts. And at the end of that 25 minutes, what I'll be talking, I ask you to do is to look at a list of ideas that actually this university has brought forward, and then try to rate them on what do you think is going to be the easiest and the hardest, and what some of your needs are as you go forward in this Marianist university. So that's where we're going, and here we go. Part 1, Catholic higher education. So in 1990, John Paul II created a document called Ex Corde Ecclesiae. Now, that document is an Apostolic Constitution, and what it does is says this is what's similar to all Catholic universities around the world, and this is the way they do mission, which is different all the way around the world. Now, that may not seem very important, but put it in perspective. In 2,000 years of a Catholic Church, we've never had one document that said that. 2,000 years, no document that summarizes what do we mean by Catholic higher ed around the world, and what do we mean by mission of a Catholic university around the world. Now, pretend you're a university professor, and you say to your students, I want you to write a paper on, students, you could relate to this, right? I want you to write a paper on what do we mean by Catholic higher education, and this is what I want you to incorporate in the paper. What's the same with these universities? A community college of 400 students, Georgetown University, a technical school in India, a school in Southeast Asia, a school in Africa that has very few books, and I want you to name what's common characteristics of all those schools, and then I want you to identify the mission they do and how they do it differently. Now, the professor gets in the papers. They don't have a lot of references because nothing's been written that's substantive over 2,000 years on this that would zero in on just those 2 points. They collect it, and the university professor gives mostly Fs to the paper that come in. The students are looking at it, why'd you give me? Because the document Ex Corde Ecclesiae is mostly plagiarized. They basically took a little bit from this text, a little bit from that text, a little bit of that text. And John Paul II did a great job in putting together little tiny pieces from text from all around the world, putting it together. But imagine the task of finding what's common between the University of Dayton, a small little technical school, a school that has 1% Catholic students and 2% university professors that are Catholic, and a school that has 80% or 90% that are Catholic. Now, what are the common characteristics? That's why this document's important, because it tries to survey that and say what's common and what's the difference in the mission. So this is called an Apostolic Constitution, and as church documents are written, Apostolic Constitutions are pretty high. But what's striking about this is it says that a Catholic university needs to be truly a university, a real university and truly Catholic. Important to note what's the noun and what's the adjective. The noun is university. The adjective is Catholic. So first and foremost, any Catholic university needs to be first a university. Second, it flavors that university, the way it proceeds, the way it does things in a Catholic way. That order needs to be kept in mind according to John Paul II as you go forward, because both are essential for a Catholic university. Now, in the very first part of the book, he says there are 4 things that are essential if you look across all universities, every place, that should, the way they proceed. And this is the language that he uses. I find that to be overwhelming, a little bit too many words, a lot of church-ese going on there. So I'm not really sure what he's saying exactly, okay? But I'll tell you what I think he's saying, the best I could make of it, so maybe you could remember some of what's there, okay? And that is that first and foremost, every Catholic university needs to be an inspirational place where Christian values exist. So it's based on a Christian worldview. Note I'm not using the word Catholic because John Paul II does not use the word Catholic in his point number 1. It It's built on a Christian humanism, number one. Number two, it should connect the faith, that is what we understand by faith, and knowledge and research that's happening at the university. Third, it should faithfully live, people at the university need to faithfully live what it means to be a Catholic person. Not everyone, but some people need to be doing it, so that there's a living witness on the campus of how do you live that life. And lastly, it's about everybody's search for the transcendent. So according to John Paul II, Catholic universities exist for the whole world. Anyone is welcome to come. Students of any belief or no belief, and faculty of any belief or no belief are welcome to join with the group of faithfully Catholics, the folks that are growing into their Catholicism, the folks that think they understand it, and walk forward to progress, to inspire Christian values, and to connect the faith with knowledge. And that's John Paul II's words, not Michael's idea of a Catholic university. That's his idea of a Catholic university. So I'm going to take those four and pull them apart for a minute. 4 points. First one, what do you mean by inspire Christian values? Well, you should create a culture that's hospitable, welcoming, open, and simultaneously a place where you can actually find virtuous living. What does it mean to have a right relationship? What does it mean to be a courageous person? What does it mean to take a risk? What does it mean to be faithful? What does it mean to be truthful? What does it mean to be brave? Virtues should be something that are being passed on at that university to increase the inspiration of why to live the human life. Next, there should be a connection between faith and what you're studying. So at a Catholic university, before you graduate, somewhere along the line, if you're going to be a scientist, there's somewhere where you should have had something that talked about how to be a scientist, that understands how to live that in a good way for society and to be fair and just. If you're in the business school, you should be able to learn what does it mean to run an ethical business. What is not ethical? There are a lot of ways to live ethics. We're not talking politics here. We're not talking bottom up, top down. We're not talking Republican, Democratic. We're not talking big business, multicultural. But we are saying that however you're living that, how do you do that in a way that's ethical? At a Catholic university, you should always find that. And you should be able to figure out how reason informs faith and faith enriches reason. Because one without the other is not a healthy situation if you are living in a Catholic worldview. For John Paul II, he believes that both are necessary so that people don't end up drinking Kool-Aid. Not everyone gets that reference, but the older folks in the room will. Okay. Third, who's here living, embodying the Christian message in a faithful way? There should be people on the campus, and they should be visible to some students and to faculty alike that there are people that are actually living the message in a concrete way. This is important for a Catholic university, so we're just not living in our head. John Paul II is interested in working with hearts and heads and practices. Where are your feet going? Okay? That's very important for John Paul II. So he's saying, how do people live? And then he wants to know, because it's a university, not how are you living, but why are you living that way? This is the one place the church needs to do its best work of thinking about, well, why would you choose that way of ethical living? Why would you choose to run your business that way? Why do you proceed like you're doing? For example, Catholic social teaching should inform the way in which we do things because it creates an equitable, just society. So putting together, well, I act this way, I treat this person nicely. Why? Because of this principle over here, which means I'm authentic, I'm truthful, trying to follow Jesus' way of right relationships, etc. And next, we should find at a Catholic campus faithful Catholics. And we should find creative Catholics. And on a good day, we find faithful Catholics that are creative. Creative Catholics that are living faithfully. So a university is a place where we want to not simply dig ourselves into the past, but we want to hear where the Spirit is calling us to step in the future. And that's where we need to be creative. John Paul II believed that it falls to a Catholic university to listen to culture, see where the world's going, and figure out how do we have to act differently as a church to respond to the cultural needs. Not be absorbed by the culture, but be a voice in the culture to make a difference. And lastly, we're about the search for transcendence. This cohort of young adults, so here, let me help create the universe for you. There's 21 million students in higher education in the United States today at 4,200 campuses. 4,200 campuses, 21 million students. How many are in Catholic colleges? Answer, 1 million. 1 million out of 21 million. How many Catholic colleges? There's 4,220 colleges. There are 220 Catholic colleges. So 4,000 colleges are not Catholic, 220 are Catholic. So of those 1 million students in those Catholic colleges, what do we know? I'll answer that question in a minute. Here's what I can tell you about the 21 million. 86% expect to bring their spiritual questions with them to the university and to have some of them answered. Now, that's not the 1 million at Catholic colleges. That's the 21 million higher education right now, done by UCLA's study on spirituality. Do you know how many professors teaching in the 4,220 colleges are interested in doing that? 5%. So you're a university professor, you're looking at the room, and 8 or 9 out of 10 students you're looking at want to know something about integrating their spiritual life, and only 1 in 20 out of 100 professors are willing to entertain that question. That's where we're at right now in the United States. What does that tell us about the cohort of people? They have questions. They want to know something about the transcendent. They expect that to be connected to what they're studying. Now here's the statistics in Catholic colleges and university. Over 65% of university professors at Catholic colleges are willing to entertain that question in the classroom and are happy to work what they can to proceed with it. 5% in the 4,000 campuses, 65% in the Catholic colleges. I wish it was 80. I wish it was 85. It's 65. That's where we're at. The good news is that we're the second highest number. The only group that beats us are the historically black colleges and universities, which are at 67%. So we're in the ballpark, right near the top. Okay? At a Catholic college or university, you're going to hear two terms used a lot. The phrase goes something like this: we need to advance Catholic mission and identity. I want to talk to you about Catholic mission and identity. I want to talk to you about Catholic identity and how to do mission. That's how we use it in Catholic colleges. I want to say that's an incorrect use of the term. This isn't John Paul II, this is Michael. I'm going to ask you, those of you that are adult types in the room that are responsible for the university in a different way than the students that are responsible, to think about what you're really saying and pull those two terms apart. Catholic identity is not Catholic mission. They're different things. The university mission is bigger than Catholic mission. You have 3 different units of thought there. So when you throw the sentence, when you put all those in one sentence, you're bordering on not saying anything substantive because you've made it so large that everything fits. So let's parse out what we mean, and this is what John Paul II does talk about in a minute. But this is why it's important. When you say a phrase like Catholic identity and mission, or identity and mission of the university, stuff like that, here's the bottom line. If you're a Jewish professor, it's not the job of the Jewish professor to advance Catholic identity. And I happen to think it's insulting for you to say it. It is important that the Jewish professor respect Catholic identity for those that are living it and trying to advance it. So respect is the word, not embracing, not becoming. But the Jewish professor is charged with the task of advancing the common good through a Catholic worldview. So they're part with us on the mission, but not part with the identity. There's an example why parsing them out are important. We want to advance Catholic identity, agreed. We want to advance university mission, that is the common good. We also want to advance a sense of the university's Catholic mission, which is advancing a worldview that's colored in a certain way with how we proceed. And this is what John Paul says about how we should proceed. So on the area of identity, he says like 10 different things. This, here's the reality. This is a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class. I got to fit this in 15 minutes. This is a Tuesday, Thursday lecture, so I've got to keep moving really quick. The 3-hour, 1 night a week class, you have to come back for that. It's a 3-hour course. So we don't have time to do all the things John Paul II put in the document, but I'm going to pick 3 out that I think are helpful to you. So the first one is that you, as a university, when Catholic, if you look at identity, it has to be a university and it needs to be Catholic. I said this in the beginning, but it's a both-and situation, not an either-or. We're not just a university, we're not just Catholic, we are both-and, Catholic and university. In his own words, we need to be both a community of scholars and we need to be a place where Catholicism is vitally present. Okay? Those are his words. Second, we need to seek truth without reserve. All topics are on the table. We'll put it in the positive. All topics are on the table. Now, does that mean that we have speakers from anywhere come in and talk about anything they want? No. But we do seek truth without reserve. There's no requirements on how we seek after truth. Not Michael, John Paul II. Free search for truth. Okay? Next, we need to have authentic witness happening on the campus. That is, who's here living the Christian life? And we need to have ideals that inform the activities. So the activities that take place on campus should reflect a university with a Catholic flavor. Remember, noun, adjective. A university with a Catholic flavor. So the way we do activities should be informative. We are not just a university that happens to have a pastoral ministry department that has a chapel, and that's where the pastoral stuff gets done. That's what Newman Centers are for at state university campuses. It's not what a Catholic university is about, according to John Paul II. So those are my 3 things for identity. So that should be seen at all universities around the world. Now, how we do mission is different in different locations. So here are some ways we do mission. So we should prepare men and women for society as they leave our place vocationally, to act mature, to act responsibly. They should know something about scientific research, and we should help the church respond in the age today. So what's happening in the culture that we should be responding to? That should be talked about at a university. That should be your mission here. That should be on the table, something we want to talk about. Also, or connected to that, we want people in their professions to be holistic as they approach things. So what is the development that's taking place in science and in humanities, in law, where students are being formed, not just intellectually, but with their heart, as they develop moving into a profession? Are we hiring the people that can help us get to where we need to go by recruiting candidates that have this understanding of a certain worldview that's Catholic flavored, that we reiterate those Catholic values along the way through speeches and talks as different department chairs and provosts and presidents talk? Are we having workshops that advance this on an ongoing basis for people who are here? And are we asking faculty and staff to do an assessment of how well we're doing this? Are we judging ourselves how well? We simply don't ask our students to take classes without being assessed. Why is it all of a sudden that the university gets a free pass and not being assessed? Usually what you get, it's hard to really measure that. What's hard to measure? We need to get in there. We need to have the best research we can to figure out whether we're accomplishing our goals or not. So what are the university goals? Let's assess them. Let's see where we stand. Now, whether you tell all the publics or whether you put new programs in place, that's your choice. But as a university, we should be doing that. We need to have a strong pastoral ministry presence where there are many opportunities for religious and moral principles to be advanced. We need sacred space. We need prayer opportunities, retreats, heritage days where we can celebrate. We need Catholic teachers and administrators and all peoples of all faiths and non-belief to have lectures to talk about what motivates them to live the life they live, what's holy, what's important. If a professor has 15 minutes left to look to their university class and give their last 15 minutes of a lecture, what would they say? We need to be having that at our Catholic universities. What would they say if they had 15 minutes left in their life that they value as important? That should be happening at Catholic universities. Third, we should be having cultural dialogues. That is, that how do we invite people that see the world differently into? Catholic universities need to be a place where fertile dialogue is taking place. I want to take you into an event that I'm privileged to lead every summer. I go with 20 presidents, deans, and provosts to Rome every summer, and we visit the Curia office, and we sit on the Wednesday audience with the Holy Father, and he says a few words, and he says Catholic colleges, and we wave, and he claps, and then we go into the different offices and meet with all the heads, which you would know as the heads of the Curia or the Pope's cabinet, okay? And we talk to them about Catholic higher ed. So I have an opportunity to do that every summer, and it's pretty cool, I must say. So we're in one of those meetings, and one of our presidents looks at one of these archbishops who's given the talk and then says to the archbishop who's standing in front of him, Archbishop, I think I heard what you said, but I just want to be really clear I understood what you said because I want to make sure I heard it clearly. So let me say back what I thought you said. Did I hear you say that at a Catholic university, we should invite and find Muslim faculty members who we hire at our university, and we should welcome Muslim students on our campus, and while they're on their campus, we should learn from them how to live the good life? And the Archbishop looked at the president like this, and put his head down like this, and looked up and said, if Catholic universities are not leading the way in the world on this topic, who can? The president said, well, I just got to tell you, if I said that in certain places in the United States, they say I was not a Catholic college. And he said, well, we have to take the lead because God created us all. We have more to learn, but we also have something to offer. And that dialogue needs to happen on university campuses that are Catholic. It's a really cool summer week that I have talking with Curia. It's not what you think, in good and bad ways. So that dialogue needs to be incomparable. That is, how do we dialogue with gospel and culture? How do we talk about modern values? How do we have a Catholic interfaith and ecumenical dialogue? These are very important things that have to happen on Catholic colleges and universities because this is where the church can do its thinking. So we need to have these opportunities created so we can learn from one another and also advance our best thinking on these topics. It's essential for us to move forward. Now here's the problem with most universities, and I must honestly say Catholic colleges fall into this, and I'm sad to say that. And that is that on most college campuses, we do not have robust conversations. But this is what we do. We do hire the Muslim professor, but we don't have a robust conversation with him or her. We do invite the Muslim students to come, but we don't really take time to learn from them how to live the good life or how to have a dialogue about what Catholics think the good life is, and most importantly, have it in a civil and understanding and clear way. So Catholic colleges are making headway in one direction, but they're not making headway in another. And this lecture is one good example of it. My recommendation is never have me back to speak again. Because this model is the university model, which I think is unhelpful ultimately for Catholic higher ed, because it misses a robust conversation. But if you want to invite me back, put somebody right here with me and let us talk with each other. And then let's model for the audience what a robust and good conversation looks like going forward. Now, I overstate my case because really I am meeting with 25 in about an hour to have a conversation, and I am meeting with 25 people tomorrow to have another conversation. So you get it, but isn't it truthful that on most university campuses, this is the model that we use too often in how we try to learn? And yet we know pedagogically this is not the best way to proceed. We need to find better ways. Lastly, every Catholic university should be about the work of evangelization, because every single institution that has the name Catholic on it is about the word of spreading the good news of how to live a life based on the person of Jesus Christ. The model of how he lived his life and cared for other people is what every Catholic institution should model and advance. And a Catholic institution that's a higher ed institution is no different. Now note, I have not said in here that we need to have a weekly baptism service where we are bringing people in and holding them and pouring water on them and say, you got to become Catholic. We would love for more people to join the Catholic community and join with us to make the world a better place. But the truth is, not everyone will at the end of time do that. And we need to be able to work the best we can to be a living model of how to proceed in living a good Catholic life, invite people into our life and into our church and into our walk of life, but at the same time honor and reverence their walk and where they're at on their journey, whether it be spiritual or right now maybe not spiritual. Wherever they are, there needs to be great respect as we walk forward and together. So when you walk around the campus, you should be able to see visible, tangible representations of what it means to be Catholic on campus. And you should have speakers that advance these kind of topics. And there should be justice programs that permeate the classrooms and out-of-class experiences, not just in the Peace and Justice Office, but at the university at all levels. John Paul II ends this part of the document with two statements. He said, Catholic universities are vitally important for the future of humanity. Now, who are they vitally important for? In his words, they're vitally important for all of humanity. Note, he didn't say for Catholic Church, he didn't say to raise money, he didn't say for just Catholics. That is, if we do not ground ourselves in the common good, to advance goodness in the world and to have a better way of living, then in his understanding, if we're not doing it, who could do it well? And that's the concern. So we can be a living model to help save all of humanity in his mind. And secondly, when you look at every institution the church has to live the gospel and interact with culture, we are the best instrument the church has. So we are one of the instruments that can make a difference for the future of humanity. Of everything I said about John Paul II and how to advance mission and identity, very future of humanity, welcoming people in the door, culturally hospitable, advancing the connection between faith and reason, between the professions and holistic thinking, all those ideas, you need one to talk about for 60 seconds. Then you're going to listen politely for 60 seconds, and then you're going to sit down. Please stand up. Now, nobody can join in threes. You only have 2 minutes, one partner only. Everybody stand up. One partner. Say, hi, I'm Joe. One partner only. So the second part of this is about how religious communities advance the true, the good, and the beautiful. And how do they do that in a unique and specific way? So any religious community that's grounded, religious community, for example, like a Marianist or a Dominican or a Jesuit religious community. That's what I mean by religious community. We could also talk about Methodist, Presbyterian, but that's a different lecture. So we're on the Marianist, Jesuit, Dominican, Sisters of Mercy page today. All of that's grounded in the very simple person of Jesus Christ. And based on Jesus and his way of proceeding. So I like to think of it this way. Think of it as a deck of Christian cards. There's 52 cards. Christians hold all the cards. They have 52 cards. But the truth is, they have some near the top and some near the bottom. So if you're a Baptist, Mary is a 3. She's a 3 card. But if you're a Marianist, she's a jack. Maybe a queen. Oh no, she's the trump card. All right, you see what I mean? You shift the card. So if you're a Christian, you would say God is right here. He's really present. But God is totally other. He's transcendent. So God's incarnational, but he's transcendent. Now, which one is God? Well, in your deck of 52 cards, if you're a Christian, God's both, right? But now Catholics have the incarnational card up a lot higher. So maybe that's a 10, maybe a king. Where if you asked a Greek Orthodox, they would have transcendental or transcendent God, God the mystery God, near the top. So when you're putting together what it means to be a Christian or what it means to be a Marianist or what it means to be a Jesuit, they order the cards of the Christian beliefs a little different in priority. They can't get rid of them because they're in what it means to be Christian. but they organize them a little different. So a religious order charism, you may have heard this term, which like a Marianist charism, you may not have, that's another answer. But this means that they embrace Christianity and Catholicism in a unique and specific way. Or think about it as they order their 52 cards in a different order than someone else. Now, I think of Catholic and charism like a sundae. An ice cream sundae. What do I mean? To have an ice cream sundae, you need ice cream and you need toppings. Okay? Now, you can't have a sundae without the ice cream. But I have been on some campuses where I hear this sentence. I don't know about the Catholic thing, but I completely embrace being a Jesuit. Or I really love the Sisters of Mercy and their idea, but I don't like Catholic. You can't have one without the other. The ice cream is the Christian belief system, Catholic belief system, and the Marianist, Jesuit, Dominican, Sisters of Mercy are the different topping flavors to have a sundae. They have to go together. You can't pull them apart. Yes, I know you can just eat chocolate syrup. Okay? All right. Okay. So if I were to describe this, I would say it in this order. We're looking for people who will join with us to advance the common good, first and foremost. Whether you're a believer or not believer, in Catholic higher ed, we're looking for people to advance the common good. Second, when we can find people that are motivated for the common good, that are Christian, that's another way of advancing. If they're Christian and Catholic, that's another way. And if they happen to be invested in the common good, they're Christian, they're Catholic, and they're Marianist, you have a really nice match for a Marianist university. Any one of those is acceptable. But there's a certain order as you move through them, which is essential. Now, if you looked at the United States, this is what you'd find. 28 Jesuit schools, all the way down to 2 there. We have a lot of one-member religious order schools. You'll see Society of Mary there on the right with 3. There are 3 Marianist universities. And each of these different religious orders advance the way they advance higher education or education in a different way. And they basically come up with different characteristics or hallmarks or way of proceedings. Now, the Marianist, in their charism, describe these 5 components as very, very important in the way they live their life and the way they proceed. That is, people of faith, followers of Mary, people of community, discipleship of equals, and leaders in mission. These are 5 very important charism characteristics to being a Marianist in following a Marianist way of living the Christian Catholic life. Okay. The Marianist universities got together and they said, let's put our 5 together of how to do that in a Marianist way. And there's documents that you can go through. They obviously build off of the charism and then they develop it into these 5 here. Now, at the University of Dayton, they took those 2 and then they put it into a higher ed statement, and that came out your mission. And you'll see that it's a Catholic university with a diverse community, committed to the Marianist tradition. Note the order there. Okay? Catholic, diverse, Marianist, educating. This is their mission part. The next part is what are they doing with who they are. So who they are, comprehensive, Catholic, diverse, Marianist. And what do? They educate whole persons, linking learning, scholarship, leadership, and service. Now, this university, unlike most universities, has been very, very invested in having ongoing conversations of how to live out that mission. I can honestly tell you that I do not know of another university in the United States that has produced this many documents in 7 years. Not one of the 220 has been that invested in producing documents. And I know of no other university that takes so much time and energy to invite so many people to the table to want to incorporate their ideas and opinions about how to advance those many documents. So that is a very strong Marianist characteristic. I think you live it to the A level. And I mean that honestly. And I see, and I'm on a lot of campuses. So as I look across the universe of higher education, this is incredibly impressive. Now, what came forth, so if you look at the last two of those documents, Common Themes and Sustaining, those two documents, what emerged from those are these 5 important things for being true to mission. And so these are the common themes. In the Sustaining document, there were 14 recommendations, of which 3 were prioritized. So I'm flipping back and forth kind of quickly. But the idea is that that's what those last 2 documents are, and I want you to focus on that for a moment. Remember I told you I wanted you to do some evaluation? We're now up the evaluation part. So if these are the 5 important themes, staying true to your mission, then what do you think is going to be the easiest and the most challenging going forward of those 5? And I want you to sit at your seat just for a minute and think about that and just sort of look at those, because I'm going to ask you to stick your hands up in a minute. So I'm going to ask you to vote just to see where the room is on this. If the University of Dayton was going to implement these 5, what's the easiest to implement because it'll work in the culture here, and which one's going to be the most challenging? So, truth is on this, on number 4, you're split as an audience, and on number 2, you got your work cut out for you. So that's where you're at as a group. Now, if we look at the 14 recommendations, no, we're not going to look at the 14 recommendations because the president and some other folks who worked really hard at this, like a lot of people, came up with 14, but then these 3 were put forward as the way to focus for right now. Sorry they're not a little bigger. So some of you may have not seen any of this, and I understand that this is your first time around on it. Many of you are going, oh my God, these things again. Okay, so there's a mixed audience here, I know that, but this is where the university is in the journey, so that's why I think it's important to name right where you're at. So in these 3, increase the voice, this is my word, I shuffled this around a little. Increase the voice and formative opportunities for staff members. Those are really 2 things. Voice and formation are different things. What you want to say about something and being informed about something are very different. But nevertheless, they're in one, and they want to increase that. We want to enhance leadership, good. And this document, commitment to community, is really important. So that made the top 3 list of the 14. So that's pretty impressive. All right. So now this is Michael's 5 minutes on, here's some thoughts to think about as you unfold those documents and you move forward. So something about some of the key words that emerged in those documents that I pulled out. So it's formation, culture, community spirit, leadership, and innovation. Those are my things. So a couple of things. First, on formation. For a university to really move from where it is to a new place, an identification of people that are sparks and people who are bridge builders is essential. There are people that are really good with generating ideas, but truth is they don't know how to build good bridges. And there are people that are pretty good with aligning with other people and finding a middle ground, but they really aren't that great with creative ideas. So what you got to do is you got to find a really good spark person, a really good building person, and try to get them working together, or a committee that has some sparks and some builders in it, or bridge builders, and try to get them together to figure out, okay, how do you move forward with formation? Because the greatest idea in the world, unless you get buy-in, is worthless. Okay? You have a lot of buy-in, but if it's not substantive, it's worthless. So you got to get those 2 lined up. And second, if you want to do formation with students, the most profitable way to advance is develop student leaders, because your turnout is 7 to 10 to 1 to be different. So if you train 1 student to be a good student leader, you will get 10 more students involved in the project you're working on. If the adult staffer does the project, your numbers will continue to stay low. Do they know more? Yes. Do they have great knowledge? Yes. But in co-curricular activity, it's all about student to student moving forward. So adults in the room, spend time, that is staff, faculty, adults, I mean everybody in the room is an adult. But those that are connected to the university, very important on this. Second, in creating a culture, here's the question that I would ask you as you go forward with all those documents. Have you given any thought to nudges? I suspect not. And what do I mean by nudge? Well, read the book by Sustin and Thalen. both from the University of Chicago, nothing to do with Catholicism. Both are higher ed people, but nothing to do with Catholicism. And this is their point. That if you are under the illusion that people will make good choices in their life, you're clueless. Because people consistently will make bad choices. For example, if you go to a breakfast buffet, more people will pick up donuts when they should be picking up fruit and yogurt than should be. They know they should be picking up fruit and yogurt, they won't. And they have shown and they have documented by statistics over and over again that if they put donuts and fruit in a line, people will take more donuts than they will fruit. But if you take the fruit and put it a little higher and put flowers around it, more people will take fruit. And if you make the fruit a little closer to the front and the donuts back a little bit, they will take more fruit. And if you put a mirror right directly behind the donuts, 8 out of 10 will take fruit. 8 out of 10 will take fruit. So here's your question. What can you build in at the University of Dayton that's a nice little nudge without controlling people? Because ultimately, putting a sign up that says, donuts will make you bigger than you are, could nudge, but is a little obnoxious. And law, ultimately, for young adults, is not a transformative experience. They need to be gently nudged into good values. So the question is, with all the documents you're writing, God bless you, is anyone thinking about simple nudges you can build in to get people to where you're trying to get them? The book is terrific. If you get a chance, look at it. Right relationships is essential. So what do I mean by that? The basic Christian message is, God loves us first. God created all of life. So God is in love with me first. Secondly, as part of God's family, I want to respond to the love God gave me. Not because I have to, but because I'm impelled to. Because when somebody loves you, you're connected in a way that changes you. So that drives me to want to be of service to others. If I recognize God's loving me, I reach out to other people to love them. And then I reach out to families and community, and I stretch out where we are. And ultimately, those relationships and love that I'm going to have are eternal. They're going to be with me forever. The number one things right now in the world that's out of whack is what makes a relationship right. So, if we want to make a difference with building community, we got to start with what are right relationships? What do they look like? They're based on truth. They're based on honesty. They're not just based on good feelings. Good feelings are essential to relationships. How do you match up good feelings that you have, that are bodily, and with good thinking? And how do you get a right relationship out of all of that? And what does that look like if it's eternal? Because whoever you're with today and you treat poorly, you're going to meet him again. On this side or the other. It's going to happen. Are we helping people at a Catholic university with that? Some. Enough? I'm not sure. We need to do more. Leadership. So let me talk about Mary. This is what I think you think about Mary. She's a really nice person of faith. How many people think that? Put your hand up if you think Mary's a person of faith. Okay, we got good agreement. Okay, how many of you think she was a catechist and an educator of Jesus? Even though he was God, how many? Okay, a little more reluctant, not so sure about how was she a catechist. That's okay, I'm not all sure we got the human divine thing down yet either. Take a good theology class. You got some great theologians here that'll help you. But here's the question I want to ask you. How many see Mary as a leadership formator who transformed the world with how she reared her son? Okay, good. So when you think about leadership formation, and you're talking about that in your documentation here, Mary could be a working model for you past just a nice woman of faith, a nice educator, but also a leadership formator that really transformed leaders for the world. And you have connections all around the world. I talked about India, I talked about Philippines, Africa. You know, when we look at higher education in the world, you have all kinds of options, and the Marianists are everywhere. So find a way to capitalize on that, because I think it would be it would be a great way to proceed. Catholic higher education, in the words of John Paul II, is one of the best instruments for the future of all humanity. You are making that a reality here at the University of Dayton. Thank you. You're doing it in a Marianist way. Thank you for listening, for forming, for leading. God bless you.